a long-time stroke survivor who's here to share her story with us. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sue Bowden, and I would like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people whose land we meet on today. So I'm here to represent stroke from a consumer's point of view, someone who has lived with stroke for 25 years. My presentation today is called Moon River Turkey, for reasons which I will enlighten you on as we move together through the next 20 minutes. When I received a phone call a few months ago from Di Marsden to ask me if I would like to speak at the Bridging The Continuum Conference, I was thrilled. Since discovering the wonderful world of the stroke community that is out there 2.5 years ago, 23 years after my stroke, I've made myself well and truly a part of this community. So thank you, Di, for giving me this opportunity. To introduce myself, I'd like to introduce a few fun facts about me. So I was born in 1970 in Wangaratta, northeast Victoria. I lived in the bush. Highlights of my childhood was 2 years in Papua New Guinea, which is where this photo is taken. I began full-time work at 16 as a receptionist after completing year 11, and I was married at 21 years of age. So I'd like to begin with a poem. I write a lot of poetry to express myself, so make yourselves comfortable as I take you back to 1993 when I was 22 years old and in the thick of rehab after my stroke. As it is, there is not much left to one's integrity when my bum is being wiped or when being fed a spoonful of Weet-Bix. A sneeze propels the mushy contents from inside my mouth onto the unfortunate nurse sitting in front of me. Yet if I become sad during the course of the day, if I come forth and sob out of desperation, no one gets it. My emotions now even have a label. It's called emotional ability. Laughing sends something happy coursing through my bruised being. So I'm confused when all this emotional stuff becomes a big deal. I've never done this before, had a stroke, lost a baby. When my mind is screaming for a tight hug, which I cannot physically respond to, but if a hug were given, all the angst of the moment would melt away and I would feel peace. Instead, each day brings physical work, punishment it feels like, for putting others in this position, the need for them to endure their own reactions when they are subjected to my broken body, mind and soul. Where's the soul therapy on my neatly typed timetable of weeks' work? While practicalities like my bowel movements, my period, my speech, I know will be a discussion point at the nurse's station. Who's taking care of my dignity, my integrity, of my soul? To give you a bit more background to what happened, I can explain that at 5 months pregnant, my husband Adrian and I presented in the early hours of the morning to our local hospital in Victoria. I had a pounding headache and a pain in my back just below my shoulder blades. After being given observations, including a blood pressure check, it was suggested that I take some Mylanta for what was diagnosed as indigestion. A bit more background here. I grew up in the bush, so my respect and regard for the medical profession was enormous. I didn't dare to question such highly educated people. At the time, I was training to be a enrolled nurse in a country nursing home, so I was in awe of all things, the knowledge of all things medical. But at 3 a.m. in the morning, as I promptly vomited back up the Mylanta I'd been given, I did question my diagnosis, as what had brought me up to hospital was waking with a jolt an hour or so prior to this with a distinct feeling that something was very wrong. So I said no, I didn't want to go home. Another round of observations took place, and this time I was asked to provide a urine sample. From here, my diagnosis changed to one of urgency, to get me to Melbourne as I developed severe preeclampsia. By mid-morning, my husband and I were in the Royal Women's Hospital in Melbourne. I had 2 seizures amidst the clutches of preeclampsia, and our baby girl, Chelsea Elizabeth, was born. She was not alive. We returned home to bury our baby within the week. I was discharged, still very unwell and on blood pressure medication, numb with the trauma from the experience we'd just been through. The detail of what I experienced at this time in hospital is not for this presentation. However, there were moments of complete disregard by medical staff for my wishes during a period when I was very highly medicated, but still very aware of my surroundings and what was going on. After Chelsea's burial, still numb, Adrian and I decided to get away for a few days, just to gather ourselves. And it was while we were walking down the main street of Phillip Island, just out of Melbourne, that I experienced my stroke. Another life-threatening event which catapulted me into survival mode for the second time in 2 weeks. This photo is from when I revisited the spot where I had my stroke for the first time this year in May. It was the right thing to do. From the time when I collapsed to the time when I was given urokinase for clot dissolving, it was over 24 hours. I was in a coma by this stage. The deterioration of life unravelled backwards before my eyes, like a film being rewound. How fortunate that Dr. Stephen Davis, now Professor Stephen Davis, was on call that night at the Royal Melbourne Hospital, and at the time he was conducting a trial involving clot dissolving treatment. My treatment was successful, with the urokinase completely dissolving the clot in my brainstem. How lucky was I, and I knew it. I had vivid near-death experiences from that time, and when I peeled back my eyelids after coming out of ICU, I couldn't wait to share with everyone what had just happened, only I couldn't. My memories of being told I had a stroke are vivid as well. I can recall a brain being drawn on the clipboard before me, and my hospital stroke support person, my hospital stroke support person letting me know I'd had a stroke. So then moving my eyes away from the clipboard after the explanation was given that I'd had a stroke, immediately knowing that I had a lot of work in front of me. I can also share that during my nursing training, I had looked after and cared for people in a nursing home who'd had strokes. My job was to engage with silent and sad people on a daily basis during on-the-job training. So as a class, we had watched the Patricia Neal story, a movie made in the 1980s. Patricia was a Hollywood actress married to Roald Dahl, the children's author. Patricia experienced a stroke in the 1960s when she was in her early 30s. The movie we had watched was about her story of recovery, the impact her stroke had on her life as part of a family. I knew that what was in front of me was going to be difficult, but I didn't doubt that it was doable. And so began the process of recovery and healing from blinking yes or no to communicate, learning to walk, talk, balance, eat, become continent. My path was waiting for me. From my stroke to walking out of rehab was a time frame from early April to mid-June 1993, so not long at all. I physically leaped forward as I gave my all to whatever was asked of me. The following newspaper article was the same year of my stroke. There is a funny story about this picture. I was supposed to have the band Southern Sun sitting beside me as they were playing at a fundraiser for stroke. However, what happened was, as the band members sat around me for the picture, I couldn't smile. I had no desire to smile now that I had just shared in my slurred and stammered voice some very personal history of mine. So people attempted to make jokes, smile at me, so I would smile back. And just as I was on the verge of bursting into tears, feeling very overwhelmed by all the attention, Professor Stephen Davis strode back into the room and asked everyone what they were doing with his patient. He suggested to put Adrian, my husband, beside me, and this is the result. So back home, I was an absolute mess, still saddened by our experience of losing Chelsea and the resulting pain from not having my silent voice heard. The isolation from my community, in which living with a brain injury brought me, there are many moments to come where I simply wondered why I had survived when I was such a burden on everyone. Greater than the thought of being a burden was the desire to live life with hope for the future, and that included having children. The opportunity that one doctor and his team gave me by saving my life and giving me a chance to live was like a glow of warmth, waiting to be remembered in very dark times. I have another poem here to share, titled Reach. How do you reach me? Reach me in the way of spaces between stars, by the gentleness of a dandelion drifting in the breeze. Reach me like there is no distance between us. Reach me like a sunbeam on a cold day. Reach me like the scent of a newborn baby. Reach me like a smile between two children playing. Reach me like I matter. Show me that I'm important, because if you reach me, there is hope. I didn't think twice that I wouldn't be able to have children, create a family. Whatever I was asked to do, I did my best in following. Inject myself with heparin, have blood tests upon blood tests, travel back to Melbourne for appointments, be hospitalised with dehydration as morning, noon and night sickness took hold. I continued on with my vision of having a family. And the result of all this wonderful teamwork and expertise has given us 3 children who are now young adults at 22, 20 and 17. So as a family, we moved states to settle in Bathurst in New South Wales to follow my husband's work. Raising and being present for my family has always been my priority. However, I wanted to work as well, and after studying the Diploma of Welfare at TAFE, once our 3 children were settled into school, I began working full-time in the homelessness sector for nearly 10 years. So how did I reconnect with all things stroke after 23 years? By pure chance, I discovered the stroke discovery website called Enable Me by the Stroke Foundation 2.5 years ago. To reconnect with other survivors took me to a whole new level of healing. To be connected with Genius Network on Facebook, founded by Caleb Brixton, who also experienced a stroke in his early 20s. People come together to offer support to each other via this social media platform, providing support which helps with the moment-to-moment living. And best of all, I was able to meet up with Professor Stephen Davis in 2016 and thank him for everything, from the way he talked to me, like he knew I understood him, to the fact that he allowed me out of rehab to see Phantom of the Opera, and we reminisced about the hot air balloons that floated by in the distance outside rehab windows. That half an hour I was able to spend with him was a very important moment to me. You can tell I'm smiling. Just to be able to say thank you in person. So I ended up finishing up full-time work last year. The need to heal further became apparent, and I slowly decompressed in what I can only call a wonderful sea of support. And up there is my first message to Enable Me, which started the whole process rolling. So where am I at now? Volunteering as a chairperson of 2 support groups, volunteering as a Stroke Safe ambassador, casual work, poetry recitals, being actively involved with my family and community, writing my memoir, staying connected with other stroke survivors from around the world, and simply breathing makes up my days. I have always found over the years that reading and writing helped me greatly. I was young and young at heart when I had my stroke, and I turned to what I can only describe as popular culture. At the time, the arts, music, exercise, reading, craft, and anything which I felt moved me in the right direction and gave me hope that one day I would feel connected in my own skin again. More recently, I have found writing poetry, something I did as a child, I've turned to. The flow of soothing melodic phrases using expressive words have allowed me to move safely into spaces when I have needed to go. So, turning back to what enabled me again, it is a place that I have found acceptance and support I longed for over the years. I have enjoyed every opportunity to be involved in all things stroke related in the last 2.5 years, and I look forward to continuing on this involvement. And here's a photo of Professor Davis and I do like that one. It's been on my phone screensaver since that time. So you may wonder why I have called my presentation Moon River Turkey. Well, that's a funny story too. Back in rehab, when I was confronted with neuropsychology tests, which I was fearful of as they made my brain burn with the need to concentrate, but I did it as I was told because I didn't want to get into trouble. Amongst these tests, I was asked to remember lists of words, perform tasks, do puzzles, and 3 words in particular stood out for me. Moon, because at the time I was visualising my brain as a beautiful, full, luminous moon. River, because I also imagined swift rivers of blood flowing smoothly within this moon with no blockages in the way. And turkey, because as I was now, I felt like such a turkey going about life. So imagine my surprise when I was part of David Lawson's memory school study last year and those 3 words came up in one of the lists. I was a bit reluctant to be involved in this study at first, the need to put myself into the position of being analysed. It certainly brought back some horrible memories of needing to persevere through these tests in rehab. But David disclosing to me that he himself had a stroke at 19, I knew I was in good hands. And if my being involved in this study assisted in the bigger picture of making a difference to what is offered to people who have strokes, helping with long-term recovery, then yes, I needed to be a part of this process. So thank you all for listening to me today, and I hope that you will take away from this gathering all of the things you need to continue the fight for stroke in whatever role you play. I have enjoyed being included in the bigger picture of discussion from this conference, acknowledging, I can't read that, I scribbled this down. I really enjoyed your enthusiasm on the dance floor last night, so just take that enthusiasm back out into the workplace. That was wonderful. I'd like to end with another poem I wrote after attending a forum last year at the Centre of Research Excellence in Melbourne, where a look at the future of stroke treatment and recovery was discussed and workshopped on the day, joining together researchers, clinicians, survivors, family and carers for input. This poem's titled Hope. Someone gave me hope today, so please do not try to take it away. I need hope to enter my wounded spirit, love, care and compassion to fill it. Hope will bring me dreams to fly. It will give me laughter and make me cry. Hope can conquer my darkest hour, 4 letters which release enormous power. Power to live my life, give to others and heal. Let hope not be a dream, let hope be real. That brings me to the end of my presentation, Moon River Turkey. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks very much to Sue for sharing her story. Now we're getting very